Welcome back to Chen Design. Today we are going to talk about how to design this handbag with the Rhino 7 step by step. Are you ready? Let's get started. This tutorial is going to be too long into one video, so it's going to be a part 1 and part 2. For the part 1, today we are going to talk about how to making this main body and how to make this pad to go with it to hold the handle. And the end, we are going to talk about the handle. In the next video, we're gonna talk about this strip and also the hardware to go with it. And finally, we're gonna talk about how to make those stitches. So that's starting from the scratch. You can design any shape and size that you want. Since this is just for the presentation, for the rendering purpose, I don't actually design in the true size, so I'm just roughly go by aesthetic. Now once I draw roughly the size that I wanted to do with this, I'm going to just moving them back to the center, and I'm just gonna use an align tool to align to the center, and I will have something like this. Okay, so this is roughly the size I'm going to go with. In fact, actually I wanted the bottom to snapping to the 0, so we got something like this. Now coming into the top view, I'm going to decide what's the bag on the bottom look like. So I'm going to use the center as a 0 and coming out, snapping into those points and coming out and come back like this, right? So then this is the bottom of the shape. Now on the top, I need to have this one going up, so I'm going to extrude it to the top for whatever that I think the height is going to be. So then we'll get this really boxy looking surface. Now with this surface, we need to have a lot more editing. If you turn on the control point, you're gonna notice that there's not much that you can do to edit for this box. So we need to, first things need to do is to rebuild the whole things. We're gonna rebuild this surface. How many points that you need, it really depends on what you're looking for. The more point you have, the more control point that you can edit later on. So I'm going to keep this as a 12 over here, and for the height I actually don't need that many, so 8 it will be okay, but the degree measure is 3, otherwise that you won't get a really good curvature on the side. All right, so now we have this on the body. I would like to start tweaking them, so let's take a look on all 4 view, and I like to have them into the wireframe mode, so it's easier for me to editing. Now I want to start tweaking and moving those back, and if you see what I'm moving, I kind of moving row by row like this. And I'm going to delete this one. That was just for the reference, and I want them to come back like this. So you kind of tweak in the way that you want it. My front view, I want the bottom to be a little bit fatter or something like that. And then on the side too, I do want to have those coming in. It doesn't have to be symmetrical, but I usually prefer symmetrical. It's just it look nicer, because we as a human being tend to be looking at things symmetrical anyway. So I like it to move on the both sides. And again, you can go back and fine tune it into the shape that you like. Maybe you do not want it to come in that much. So this is something that you can do. So far I've been doing it's just 1D scale. All right, so I need to have this kind of a caving in here. So let's say if I only pick up those 2 and and I kind of 1D scale in, and all I get is something like this, right? So it's kind of caving there, but I do not want it to move the top in anymore. So I actually need few line there to help me. So maybe pull out this just a little bit. I think it's caving way too much. And I actually wanted to edit some line there. So let me go ahead to coming here for our control point. And you do have this one, it's called insert a control point. So I'm gonna select this surface and I wanted to toggle so they will be right in this direction. And right here I want to add in a line and adding another line there. The same thing I wanted to do on the other side, one line here, one line here. So I'm adding that control point there. Now if I pick up those 3 points on the top and I wanted to rotate it coming in like this, and you kind of seeing it's kind of pinch in there, but it's a smoother pinch in instead of really big, right? So I'm going to pick up those points here, and again I want to use a rotating tool, and it's kind of a pinch in like that. All right, so then that gives us a little pinch. I mean, it's up to you that you can make them pinch more if you want to. All right, so now this is the surface that we have, and it is just a surface. So if you just go ahead to render this, you're going to see it's more like a paper thin. It doesn't show the quality for the leather or, you know, the thickness on that. So what we wanted to do is creating thickness, and I'm going to use the command for offset. And I'm going to offset inside, so I'm just going to flip it for 1.5 millimeter or whatever your letters look like. Now I'm going to go back and do one more time. If I going to use the solid equal yes, and I can do is I can get this solid there, but it doesn't look too good whenever that you are doing the rendering. It is a soft good, and with any soft goods, that having a hard edge, it just doesn't make sense. And one thing that you can do is you can give it something really small fit. Let's say we're gonna do for 0.35, and you can soften the edges of this, and that should give you something rounded. If that works for you, that's fine. But I would like to do is to do the offset the same thing, and we're gonna offset the surface and flip it inside as well, and solid equal no. So then I will get something like this. Once I get this, I'm going to use the surface command for blend surface, and chain edge equal yes. I want to have this one and this one, and we'll blend it together, and doesn't have to be so bump like this, coming down like this, and we can join this. We'll join those 3 surfaces together, and let's check on the render view one more time, and you can see it's much nicer. It looked really soft there. All right, so this is the trick that I like to use. Instead of a solid equal yes on the offset surface, I like to use solid equal no, and it's kind of blending the surface together. All right, so then that's one. Now let's take a look on the bottom. Since we changed the surface, so it's no longer follow our original curve there. So I'm no longer want to use this one. And by the way, we have this opening there. So I simply just going to loft in between here to here. So kind of giving whatever the surface there to close it. We don't actually print this one, so even though you don't close it, that's fine. So we're going to duplicate the edges for this one, and then we're gonna use that to make it into a solid by extruded planar curve straight, and I'm gonna have it going down maybe for 2.5 millimeter, and to have something like this. All right, if you look at the render view, because it is extruded from the edges, so it feels like it's nothing unless you separate them in 2 different material. Any of the connection on the material, I always like to fillet the edges. So we can do is fillet edges and make sure chain edge equal. Chain edge is there, and we want this one. And we also need this one over there. The render will look nicer, and also the one on the bottom. So then if you look at the render view, you're going to see the separation of the bag. All right, let's go back one step. And if you don't like that way, another thing that we can do is we can make this one into the surface first by using a surface from planar curve. Right, and once you get this surface, and we wanted to creating another surface by moving it down like this, And again, we can use the blend surface. Make sure chain edge is equal. Yes, we want to blend from this one to this one. And we don't need that bump there. So it's the same trick that you use to creating this piece there. So let's go ahead to join all of them. And I would like to assign them in different color. So that way you know what I'm doing. Okay, so now we got this. We can starting working on this handle holder. I don't know exactly name there. If you are a bag designer, you may can tell me what is that little piece to hold the handle. So what I like to do is creating a straight line right there, and I'm just going to mirror to whatever distance, and I can move in or move out if I feel like it's too much, right? So now I have this two straight line and tilt it a little bit, and I can blend in between here and here. And I want to move it down by holding the shift so I can move both of them at the same time. And I click OK. Let's blend one more time here and here, and holding the shift, moving back at the same time, and click OK. So now we can join this. Okay, so once I have it, I'm going to move it to where that I think this piece is going to be. And then we are going to mirror to the other side like this. So this is where that piece is going to be. Maybe I should have just tilted them a little bit. So let me do the mirror one more time to see if that is the place that I want. So let's go ahead to mirror something like this. So you see this line and this line, and I'm going to turn it into the red color so it's easier for you to see. Okay, so this is the place it's going to hold my handle. If that is the case, my handle is going to be somewhere about here and here, and going up like this. And then I can rebuild this guy. There's too many points there, so I may just want to have a 7 point, and I want to bring those points up, just kind of a proportionally to look if that is the place that I want for my handle, if that pad is big enough to holding the handle there. So I kind of want to see the curve first. Alright, so if that look alright to you, we actually need to create this surface. However, we've been kind of tweaking about this piece, so the surface is no longer straight. Anything that we use this curve to creating the surface, that won't fit the surface, right? So we just want to use a handbag itself. Let's go ahead to Control C and Control V. So now I have a two bag there as a body. Let me hiding one of it, and we are simply just going to pick up this one and to trim the rest of it. So now we have the pad there. We only need the one outside, so the one inside we actually don't need it, and I'm going to delete a bunch of them there. So we don't need this one, this one. Those are the 4 pieces we need. Let me change it into the color for the red one. Okay, so now if we have any of the handle, this piece is not going to hold it, right? First of all, it doesn't have the thickness, it's completely attached there. Second, we need to have some sort of opening on the top so the handle can insert and sew it inside. All right, so if that is the case, let's work on the handle first to know that where this pieces should be. So my handle is going to look something like this. It's going to start it from here, coming up, maybe like this, going straight like this, and coming more like this way. All right, so then I have a curve there. Make sure that curve is straight. All right, now I have this curve and also have this curve, and so I would like to have is to have this arc but follow the profile of this curve, right? How am I going to do that? Let's try the command for curve from 2 view, because we have view 1, we have view 2. We are going to creating a curve in between this guy and this guy. So now you can see this one, I'm going to turn it into the cyan color. This one is actually fitting in there really nicely. If I simply just piping this one, for example, and for something really small, then you can see the handle is possibly going to be there. I can kind of move it out just a little bit. It will still fitting in there. Now, if that is the handle, which we are not going to use this, is we're going to alter it. This is just for here for the placement. We need to make sure that this piece can compensate the height for this handle, right? So what I like to do is I'm going to pick up all this piece, and we actually just need to make two of them because those two are symmetrical. So I'm just going to delete those. All right, those two pieces right here, this little piece and this little piece. All right, if I type in rebuild, and this is what you are going to see. Even though I want to rebuild a lot, I say 24, you're going to see it is rebuilt with the point for whatever original surface. Why? Is because when I turning on the whole thing, my control point is stick on everywhere, right? And it's actually not much point fall into those two little pads to do the edit. So let me do one more time. Let's do one by one, and let me hide this guy here. So first things I wanted to do, instead of a rebuild, you want to try string trim surface. All right, once you hit that, it felt like this is nothing happened, right? But if you turn on the control point, you can see the control point is close to where the border of this piece. By comparison, this guy, if I turn on the control point, you can see it's still keeping the original handbag there, right? So need to make sure that you do string trim surface. And we want a string trim surface on that piece as well. All right, so now we have that. The second thing is we can go ahead to rebuild this guy. Now, if we rebuild this guy and we wanted to say have about 10 point, and on the high, I want to have a 10 as well. So then I will get something like this. If we turn on the control point, then we can say, okay, maybe right at this spot right here, and I want them to come out, and maybe right at those two need to come out a little bit too, so you can kind of see it cover, you know, our design right there. So maybe right at this point and this point, it come out a little bit too much there, so I want them to come back a little bit. And you kind of fine tune it because it's kind of flat there. Maybe I want to pick up the one in the center and kind of just moving up a little bit, like this one moving up a little bit to fine tune it, something like that. It look more natural, right? So it's up to you how, I mean, depends on how big this handle is gonna end up with, right? So once you have it, I'm going to have this one again, that's offset. Again, that's offset the surface, and we want to offset this way, and for 1.5 solid equal no, and we'll get something like this. That gives us the thickness of this piece, and then we can just blend it. The surface, make sure the chain edge is equal. Yes, we're gonna pick up here and here, and then it's way too bump there, so kind of move it back a little bit and click OK. So then that will be the piece to holding your handle there. So let's go ahead to join it. Once it is joined, and because if it's symmetrical, I'm going to simply just mirror from there to here, and again from here to the other side. That's turning back the handbag, and this is how we get for this. The last thing is for the handle, and we can sweep something over there if you want to. Let's say I'm going to creating some sort of a pipe looking things for my handle, and I also like to create something like that. And I want to align it horizontally first and kind of trimming each other and join them. All right, and then I wanted to give it a little bit corner, so maybe let's go ahead to do fit it a corner. The radius, let's try 0.5, and we're gonna have here and here smaller, and having a little radius. Anything with the little radius always look nicer. All right, so why am I picking this shape? It's because a lot of the time when you have a leather handle, you got something in the middle. Let's say you have some sort of plastic or some harder material, and your leather is actually wrapping around, right? Once you wrap around, you're gonna sew it together. This is the spot where we are going to have a stitches, right? And then you always have that little things coming out. Okay, so I want to get the shape at least look like that. And then so I'm going to, I think a handle might be too big. I'm going to move this handle close to the center there and mirror to the other side. And for those two shapes right there, it's not in the right place because it's sticking to the bottom. So I want to move it in my front view, get it really close to where the starting of the handle, right? So let me hiding everybody so you know what I've been doing there. And let's give it a try. We wanted to do the sweep one rail, and you got this rail, and you got cross section 1 and 2. Then that's how we get this handle there, right? Let's turn on everything back and to see if that fitting in there nicely. Now it might cut into the back there too much, so I also have a little bit space there, so actually I'm going to move it out like this, so that feel like this things is in there. You can make this touching much better. You just need to go back and adjust that surface. All right, so if you like that, you can go ahead to cap it. Even though we don't print it, I also always like to make it solid as possible, just in case I want to do something about it, right? All we need to do is to mirror to the other side. And then we have a basic shape is done. Alright, so for today's tutorial, I'm going to stop it here. For the next week, we are going to look into how to make the hardware, how to make this strip, and how to do the stitches, all the detail on the leather. Stay tuned, we'll be back next week. Thank you for watching and see you next.